Hello and welcome. Welcome back. We are back from vacation. Had quite a trip, about a week and a half long trip, and got all the computer stuff set up with about 5 seconds to go. So we're rolling. I think everything's working. Hi, John. Hi, Todd. Hey, Aaron. Thanks for joining. Thanks for jumping in. To the Electric Car Hangout, or that's the working title for right now. It's not a great name, but it makes a little more sense, is a little more obvious as to what we're talking about compared to everyone's an expert. But you guys all know the story behind that. But we're back, and I don't know if anything's happened in the world in the last 2 weeks, so is there even a point in doing the show? Just crazy, tragic stuff happening in Ukraine. Russia invading. Just it gets my kid from the 80s hackles all up. All of my childhood fears about the Cold War and what could happen are on high alert, and I'm just feeling awful for all the people there that are just trying to live their lives next to someone who decided it's theirs now. Obviously all my thoughts and prayers are with them, and hope Russia can decide to take their weapons and go home and be done with it. I'm not going to dwell on that tonight. Wasn't even planning on opening with it, but I feel like it needs to be said. And obviously, I don't have the expertise. Speaking of not naming the show, everyone's an expert anymore. I definitely don't have the expertise or global knowledge to have any further thoughts, at least broadcast, on that topic, and no one needs my hot take on a situation so serious. So, gonna pretty much stick to EVs tonight. Obviously, the big story that's kind of broken the last day or so has been the Rivian price increase, which is unfortunate to see. It looks like people were seeing a $10,000 to $18,000 addition onto their Rivian reservations that they had already made. They put down $1,000 a couple years ago already, expecting that the prices would hold, and now they're being moved up. Some of the accessories are moved up. I think according to Electrex, I think according to, yes, audio's back on. Okay, good. According to Inside EV's article, it was saying that the truck is getting the R1T is getting a 17% price increase, and the R1S, the SUV, is getting like a 20% price increase, which is super duper unfortunate. Really a bummer, and then the accessories and everything are getting price increases too. So some people were seeing a vehicle they thought was going to be $80,000 is now going to be over $100,000 with options and stuff. And that's a lot of dough. And unfortunately, there was so much hope. I think rightly so, because the R1T, at least, that has been out and about, seems to be getting great reviews. So it was good. Like, it seems like it's a really good product. But because of that, and people wanting the first EV truck, a lot of people put in reservations knowing that it was going to be a stretch already. We talk a lot about the Tesla stretch, where that's kind of what we did. Is we did the math. We're like, yeah, this kind of makes financial sense if we decide we just want it really bad. And we made it work. And I think a lot of people put their Rivian orders in kind of in that same, we're stretching as much as we can, but we know we've locked in this price and we'll have that. So, tough to see those being raised on people who have had reservations in for a long time. Rob Maurer did a pretty good piece on that in his Tesla Daily today. Kind of talking more about the financial side from a company standpoint. I don't know or have as many opinions on that. Again, that's not my area of expertise. It's just unfortunate for the people who were hoping to get their truck at the price they thought they were going to. And so we'll see if there's anecdotally online some polls are saying that like Rivian's losing about half of their orders or their pre-orders on this. And it obviously is a bad PR move, but you never know on polls like that. Are the people online talking about it the ones who are upset about it enough to like participate in those polls? So is it skewed just by who's online looking at that poll for the people who are more upset about it? Then there's also, if they've got 70,000 pre-orders, and even if half of those cancel, will there be people to, if the truck is that good, there will probably be people who will fill in that gap as people cancel. So it's pretty unfortunate. They did announce that they're going to do dual motor versions of both of the vehicles at the original price. And I think you could probably trade your reservation over to that, but that might not come until 2024. So, by then, are there other options, or are you just going to live with something else? Who knows? But, it's a tough situation, and definitely tough for anybody who's, had that order in and dreamed of that truck, because I've seen it in person. It's really cool. And, that just kind of stinks. Hey, Tyler. Hey, Jason. Welcome. It's raising gas prices, which ties into electric vehicles. Yeah, that's true. That is definitely a connection there that's happening, and there's a lot of global trading going on and stuff. So it's definitely getting people talking about how much they're paying at the pump, and then those conversations are easier to have about EVs. John says some people might not qualify for a loan if it's over 100,000. Yeah, that's true. I don't think they're all over 100,000. I think that's just if you spec up all the extras on it, so people could back off on some of that stuff. People will start after eating ramen noodles to offset the price of the truck. Yeah. And inflation is pretty high, and the situation in Ukraine, that is not helping matters with supply chain stuff, with inflation, with global uncertainty in the markets. So, I think that was, kind of the big thing Rivian was saying was the inflation and the, products and, the whole supply chain issues. Prices have gone up. it is unfortunate that they couldn't have grandfathered some people in or had some sort of discount for, even if you have to raise prices a lot or a little on those early reservation holders, maybe make it not so painful. And then new reservations, or you're paying full price, or whatever. Would have been nice to see them do something like that, just as a goodwill gesture, so you felt like even though you're paying more, you're getting a better deal than people who are reserving now. Maybe that's something they could implement, but it's kind of, I'm sure from their perspective, it's a matter of survival, and there's kind of a parallel here of the Tesla Gen 1 Roadster. They had to raise prices on that, or prices on some of the options. It's a really super awkward scene in Who Killed the Electric Car. If you haven't seen it, it's worth checking out. Where Elon's got all these people who ordered the car and basically has to stand there and say, we got to raise the prices or we won't make it. And it could be a situation like that. I would hope, if you believe the best of what Rivian wants to be, I would hope it's that kind of situation, like they just don't have any other choice. But the difference is, when a company's kind of like, do we support the mission or support the survival of the company? The benefit, as awkward and painful as it was for those first gen Roadster reservation holders, is you had a bunch of mission driven people who cared enough about the mission that wanted the company to succeed. And there weren't really any other options at the time. So, a lot of people may have been upset about it or understood but still didn't like it and just went with it anyway. Whereas now, if Rivian's in that same position and it's the mission of the company versus the survival of the company, those reservation holders do have other options. It might not be a pickup. It might not be able to do everything the R1T or R1S can do. I've seen some suggestions on Twitter that if Ford wanted to capitalize on this, they should reopen the books for F-150 Lightning reservations. Might be savvy for them to do that, but if they're thinking the next round is going to have to be more expensive too, it might be good to keep that locked down at where it is, and then at that time announce higher prices, but you can reserve again. So there's going to be a lot of figuring out that has to be done. Hopefully Rivian can survive this. They do have the Amazon side of things where they're making the delivery trucks. Guessing that Amazon did not also see a price hike like this. So kind of, maybe they did. I don't know. I think they've got an earnings call in a few days, and some of that might be clarified a little bit. I do hope they survive. I think they've got good products, and they've got a roadmap that I think is pretty good and solid, if they can just stay solvent long enough to execute on it. So, but it really stinks for people who had the orders. I was really hoping I'd be seeing a lot of those in Minnesota, and I think before we went on our trip, I believe I saw a few posts of an R1T or 2 in the Twin Cities, and they were looking for they have like a service center location they're putting together here, which is great. But got to get the trucks in people's hands and get them here, and so we'll see how that all goes. Let's see. I saw the Rivian in 2020 in Austin, Texas. It was fully charged live, and they had kind of a big tent. If you look at our Frunk Full of Diapers series, the video playlist, I want to say it's the second or third episode, and I kind of walk around both vehicles as best I could with the mob of people that were around them. But they're very cool and much bigger than I expected. Much bigger than they look in pictures. Hey, Roland. No problem being late. I was barely getting this set up in time, so join the party. I was wearing Roland is Chemist American Lifestyle. He made the hat behind me. Which one? Let me get my thumb on that. That hat that I was wearing quite a bit in our vacation. So thank you for that. I don't know if it'll focus on it. There we are. But yeah, so this has now got a lot of seawater on it. So that was fun. John says, with that price increase, I wonder how much more it's going to be on a loan. Yeah, it depends on how much money you put down. It depends on what your interest rate is, which kind of goes to your credit, and probably makes it more difficult for younger people to get into it. Jason says, I hope Rivian survives. Tough economic times nearly killed Tesla. Yeah. The Ford exit and Amazon and Stellantis deal came at really bad times. Yeah. Duncan says hello. Hello. Welcome. Says, I'm used to lifted trucks with MagnaFlow pipes. Sounds amazing. Do I think e-trucks could provide the same look or sound? Well, yeah, you could easily make the look of, people have even lifted Teslas. I can't remember which one it was. I've seen pictures of a lifted Tesla. I've seen somebody put like tank tracks on it. I think that burned out the motors though, or some of the joints or something. So it's not recommended. But as far as the look of the pipes, yeah, you could just put the exhaust pipes on it and then pump sound out. Tesla did have boombox mode where you could play music and stuff out through the speakers as you were driving. The NTS8, I'm blanking on the acronym, but basically regulators said you can't do that because you have to hear their annoying pedestrian warning sound instead. There's probably hacks around it. I think Blake Check had a video about this monster speaker he put in his frunk. And so he was like, well, sure, they canceled that, but I can still do this in the frunk. So there's ways around it. You could kind of do some of that fun stuff. And so, yeah, it's possible. Just kind of depends on what kind of mods you want to do. Banana Booey? Who is this handsome lady? Thank you. I've worked hard to be the handsome lady I am today. Yeah, I think who's Duncan? I think I think a lot of people are going to want to do stuff like that and kind of have that same kind of visceral roar of some kind of noise. I know that people want to do that stuff. I think, like I said, Blake Check, if you check out his channel, did something with an external speaker in the front. And other people have played like different engine noises. There's some stuff out there on YouTube. Yeah, I Won Tesla did a modded Y, and he, did like big knobby tires, did this roof rack with a tent, did a big road trip last year with his wife, out through Montana, then down in the Southwest, and was off-roading, had this system where he was able to inflate and deflate all four tires at the same time, so he could get, really low pressure and go over all the rocks, do all the bouldering and stuff. So that was a pretty cool series. The man stopped him. The man is always holding us down. Yeah, the fun police kind of killed that, which is funny because the whole point of the pedestrian warning symbol or sound is that people can hear it. And because the music was louder than it, they disabled the music, which makes it harder to hear. Kind of strange. John's never had the speaker on. I've done a couple things with the boombox just for fun in parking lots and stuff, or with my daughter, played music outside. But don't do too much with that. It's just, it's a lot of that stuff is fun gimmicks, kind of party tricks. Show that the cars are fun, and then how much do you really use it day to day? I was noticing as we got home last night from our road trip, it was 3,745 miles total. And as I was cleaning out, I found the game controller in the center console, and I thought, oh man, I didn't even touch that this whole trip. But when we were on stops, I was dealing with my daughter. We were getting food, doing other stuff, meeting up with Jim, the Iowa Tesla guy, and EV Dave, and my cousin down in Knoxville, and so just kind of having a good time as we went. So no time for video games. But I'll get back to that. Anyway, what is White House hate Elon? We've had a couple chats about that. I don't think it's as much of a hate thing as it's a, obviously, trying to play toward the union shops, which I'll get back to on another front. And I also think a problem with a lot of our politicians being older is they have a really hard time acknowledging young companies. So I don't necessarily think it's as much I don't think it's as necessarily as big of a slight as a lot of people think. I think it's people in that generation think of Ford and GM and Chrysler as being the big American companies. And so what Rivian is doing, what Lucid is doing, what Tesla is doing, what Lordstown or, whoever else startup, Canoe or whatever, what they're doing just really isn't on their radar. It's like, oh yeah, there's a bunch of startups, but like they aren't the big three, And I think a lot of the population is probably in that category too. I mean, when people think EVs, they think Tesla generally. But aside from that, I think it's more of a. It's not important to mention them because they aren't the big boys, even though in the EV space, obviously Tesla is the big boy. But I kind of want to switch over to Ford. This is kind of a good transition. Ford announced, I think this morning, that they're switching or they're going forward with their Ford Plus plan and splitting the divisions of Ford into Ford Blue, which is all their internal combustion engine vehicles, and Ford Model E, which isn't a vehicle, it's a sub-brand, or it's a segment within Ford. That will be the Lightning, the delivery truck, I can't think of the name of it, and the Mustang Mach-E, and then future electric vehicles, and all their like connected vehicles. So what's really weird to me is obviously the name. They're using Model E because they used to have a Model E back in the day. E, electric, all that stuff. But it's a brand, not a car model. And so it's weird. It's like if Target said we're going to split our division into, we're gonna be Target Red, and that's gonna be all our stores. And then we're gonna have an online store that's gonna be called Target Shirts. And it's not just shirts; it's all the same stuff, but just under Shirts brand. So a bizarre like way to name something, but I'm trying to figure out how significant. I was reading some of the tweets and some of the things from different Ford officials, and it seems like everything's still going to be under Ford, but they're just segmenting this out. And I don't know if it's an just internal structure thing, but with this Ford Model E brand, they're going to work to try to get dealers to like sign up and pledge to be like not having markups and some other kind of criteria to be these preferred dealers. And that kind of got me thinking, well, early in the day, it got me thinking, okay, this is then a hard split because they're trying to go the Tesla route and sell direct. Or that's what they'd like to do, is what it sounded like. And it's apparently not that, but that was my first thought was, okay, we have a break. This new company, essentially, can say, we're not Ford, we're going to sell direct, we're going to do all the Tesla, Lucid, Rivian things of, being our own, essentially our own dealers, to not have that hold us back. And I was thinking, well, does this also on the back end then maybe get them out of some supplier get that division then out of some supplier contracts that they might be locked into? Does it change anything from the union aspect of how their plants are? Would that separation go all the way down to like the UAW, and would that be part of it? But if Ford is staying one company, which I found out later that it is all under the same company, I wouldn't think they'd have that flexibility, because a lot of the dealership, National Dealer Association, and a lot of the state dealership things are all built so that Ford can't do that. But if they said, no, we're a completely new company, then maybe they could. So that kind of gets to where they're trying to get dealers to sign up to pledge to not do a markup, but then they really don't have control over that unless they just say, well, if you don't do it, then we aren't giving you any vehicles. We'll just keep feeding you the ICE vehicles. So I don't know. It's weird. I don't know. From an internal structure standpoint, it probably makes sense to have, look, you guys are working on this stuff and you guys are working on that stuff. From a Wall Street perspective, it probably makes a lot of sense to seem nimble and startup-ish, and kind of give their image an overhaul a little bit. But in practicality and for the customer, unless they can get dealers to sign up to this kind of pledge, I don't know that it makes a big difference to the average EV buyer. And it kind of, it's a little odd. I wonder if they've done polling and studies on this, because to me, as an EV enthusiast, it makes me think that you're just kind of assigning your legacy business to this dying vine. But they might have internal polling, and in their statement, Jim Farley was saying, the internal combustion engine isn't going anywhere. We're all in on EVs, but the internal combustion engine isn't going anywhere. So I wonder if enough hardcore Ford, like the 350 owners or the 250 owners, enough of them are annoyed or considering leaving because Ford seems all in on EVs, that there's a reason to keep those people happy by saying, nope, we're keeping Ford as Ford is, and Ford's going to be blue, the traditional. You'll still get your F-250, F-350. You can still get all that through us, even the F-150 combustion version, and keep those kind of people happy. But then how long does that last if the Lightning and then maybe some future vehicles start really outperforming those at some point? So maybe it's a good strategy for this decade. And then at the end of the decade, when technology has progressed, when their EV ramp up is more in full swing, then maybe merge them back together again, and maybe that would be another good PR moment at that point. So I don't know. I don't know. It probably matters to Ford. I don't know that it matters to any of us. So I'd be interested if anybody has any thoughts on that. Yeah. Jason says 4 Model E. Yeah, it's that was a committee decision for sure. Yes. Um, yeah, it's called terrible. Yeah, I don't know. I think they even had like like the division. I think that's becoming Ford Model E was like their Edison division, which is kind of fun and relatively clever. Um, I think they could have just done that. If you're staying within Ford, just why not just make Team Edison the thing? Um, and there's been some suggestion that it's a little snarky dig at Tesla because Tesla wanted to name the Model 3 the Model E. Ford wouldn't let them because it's their trademark. Uh, but now they're using it for a division of the company. Like I thought it would have been great to make, you know, a vehicle the Model E. Um, but yeah, it's a really odd choice for a business division name. Um, Roland says they Ford should make it like the Volvo and Polestar to not Osborne affect their own product. Yeah, um, that's an idea. I think that was probably easier on the Volvo Polestar side because they were both bought by the Geely Group, the Chinese group, um, and so they could kind of say, "All right, we're plucking these two things, and we're going to kind of separate them." Um, I don't know if Ford had the capability or imagination, or again the between like dealing with unions and dealing with dealerships, maybe they didn't have the flexibility um, legally or from a negotiation standpoint to do that. I'm not sure. Um, Blue Dog 99 says, I think it's smart for Ford to have a separate sort of division that allows them to sell their EVs online and avoid the crazy dealer markups. Um, yeah, I'm not sure they can swing that though. Yeah, that it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. Um, a lot of this stuff is still for a couple years away, or like by the time it's sorted out, it's going to be 2024. And on one hand, well, really, it's like, does this even matter? And then, will the landscape have shifted so much even by then that they're going to have to make other changes? I don't know. I do like that um, they are. They seem to be trying hard to move fast. And I know their production ramp ups aren't as fast as people would like, and I know their overall totals of EVs aren't where we'd like them yet. Um, from a standpoint of what their production targets are for the next few years, but if they continue to sell and continue to do well, you can always bump those up. You can always accelerate those plans. So being aggressive and continuing to bump those plans up is an overall positive. Um, we saw several Mustang Mach-E's on our trip, and that was really cool that other EVs are popping up. Not as many as Teslas, obviously, um, but we had a Porsche Taycan charging next to us at the hotel 2 nights ago. Um, like I said, a handful of Mustang Mach-E's on the road. Um, saw a couple Leafs and some other things, but um, didn't see as many ID4s And I don't know if it's that they blend in enough with other VW products that I don't notice them enough, or if we just really didn't encounter many of those on the road. So a Polestar in the wild too in Florida, so that was cool. Hopefully Sunday I have our first video on the road trip out. That's my goal. It's a little slow going. Today's our first full day back. We got back late last night. Well, late yesterday afternoon, but by the time we unloaded the car, all that kind of stuff, it was late. But a little more on that later. On a Ford F-350 truck, you would have to have a 200 kilowatt hour battery pack in it to handle all that extra weight. Yeah. That's why I don't think we'll really see those kind of trucks probably until the end of the decade. When battery technologies had a few more years, when the Ford Model E team has had more years of data on their battery systems, and the Lightning's been out in use, and they've got data back on some of those. It will need a ton of batteries, though. Nathan says, reminds me of the innovator's dilemma. Yeah. Better to cannibalize yourself than let others do it. Also, like Apple creating a special team for the Mac. I didn't know that, but yes, it would make sense like that. Turned out good for the product development, but created an internal division and rivalry. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know too much about that, the history of Mac, even though I've got like 2 running here right now. Yeah, sometimes that rivalry can be good. If you've got engineers trying to outdo each other, technicians trying to outdo each other, and things just get better and better and better, that can be great. Otherwise, I don't know. I don't see a way in which Ford Blue doesn't just languish into obscurity or become kind of I think they call it Ford Pro, where it's the 350s, it's the 250s, it's the commercial, more heavy duty vehicles, until those eventually become battery electric too. So, yeah, gonna be interesting to see. Like, does that division just keep chugging along, and maybe does a lot of exports to parts of the world that aren't going electric as fast? I don't know. Hey, thanks for the sticker, John. Appreciate that. So, couple quick things. It sounds like the gigafactories in Austin and Berlin are close to opening. Maybe. I heard some rumors of deliveries out of Austin, but I don't know if those have been confirmed or if those are just Reddit people working on getting people going. But obviously, getting those open would be great whenever it can happen. Sounds like there are a lot of rumors coming out of Berlin about a party and Elon flying out. I thought I heard like the 26th of March or around that time. Don't quote me on that. Don't book a plane ticket based on that statement. I don't know that you'd get in anyway, but that's cool. It's Obviously, we all wanted these to both open last year. Hasn't happened. But kind of like FSD progress, when we look back in 2 years, it's going to feel like it happened in an instant. Um, so I'll get a little more into that in a minute. Jason asks if I've kept up on Monroe's teardown of the Plaid Model S. No, I have not. I did see a little snippet they put out of them talking about the motor, and Sandy saying like they invented some new physics or something. But I was trying really hard on this vacation. For those of you who don't know, not this past Saturday, but the Saturday before, my daughter and I left Minnesota, and we took 4 days driving down to Cocoa Beach, Florida. Spent the rest of the week there till this past Sunday, and then yes, I'm back. Then we drove back over the last 3 days, and I was kind of trying to detox of all the Tesla and EV stuff I'd been taking in, because I tend to watch everything and read as much as I can, and if there's a YouTube channel doing a video about you know, some new EV or a new review or something, generally I'm watching it, and it's cool. I love being up to speed on all this stuff, but it does get a little exhausting. So I was like, I'm just not going to watch some stuff for a while. And I hadn't had a chance, just from general busyness, to keep up on all the Monroe videos, because those are ones that I really want to sit and watch. Sometimes I'll put something on in the background while I'm doing other stuff, and I'm just kind of listening to the gist of what they're saying. But on those, I really want to sit, have the time to watch, and concentrate on what they're talking about, so I understand it better. So I'm behind on those. Really fascinated to see how that all turns out. I didn't get a chance to visit Brian. I won Tesla. I thought about reaching out to him, but I kind of knew we were going to be on a time crunch. We had already talked about meeting EV Dave in North Carolina, and Brian's there too. And it just my goal was to also meet Brandon and Kaylee, the EV Nomads, in Charlotte. And I thought, if we add in another meetup, it's going to be a lot. Or if we all meet at the same place, then that's going to be a lot of logistics. So I'm going to try to do more of this in the future, and plan longer days, on days where we want to do that kind of stuff. Also in North Carolina, we were through Tennessee into North Carolina. We were going through Great Smoky Mountain National Park, and really wanted to just have some daddy-daughter time, get out, look at some of the overlooks, do little hikes and things. We dipped our feet in the water. It was very, very cold in a mountain stream, and but just kind of have some of that fun time too. So trying to balance all that was a lot. Would have liked to have met him, but it just didn't pan out. Let's see. Yeah, Jason says there's so much content and not enough time. Yeah, there's so many people doing great things, or cool things, or unique things with new vehicles that, if I like not meeting Brian from My One Tesla doesn't mean I don't like his channel. I do. I've been a fan of it for a while, last few years, but it's just you can only do so much. You can only watch so many videos and stay up to speed on stuff. So with the Gigafactories opening, a couple other notes on the Russia's invasion into Ukraine. Some cool things out of that. It obviously doesn't make up for what's happening there, but Tesla's opened up some superchargers along the borders for people trying to escape, and they've also opened those to all EVs. Because everything over there is CCS, they were able to just enable it for whoever plugs in gets a charge. So that was really cool. Glad to see that. And then because they were having satellite issues or internet issues, SpaceX sent some Starlink dishes. So that's pretty cool. That definitely pissed off the head of Roscosmos. Was tweeting earlier today that, I thought these things were supposed to be, I thought, Starlink was a non-military or, non-political thing. Let me see if I can, so Elon said, Ukraine's civilian internet was experiencing strange outages. Bad weather, perhaps? So SpaceX is helping to fix it. So I thought that was pretty good retort of like, hey, something's happening over there that's caused their internet to go out, so we thought we'd help. Wonder what that thing could be. Elon doesn't always have perfect Twitter responses, but I thought that one was one of them. So, glad they're helping out in the ways that they can. Sorry, that was probably loud. Yes, John asks, what did you average on the watt hours per mile? About 300. Generally, I was over 300. I think the final overall trip was about 340 watt hours per mile, maybe 336 or something like that. A lot of that, it was 0 degrees Fahrenheit when we left Minnesota, when we left home, and cold all the way through Iowa down into Missouri. It started warming up, and then yesterday when we came back, it was still still 46 degrees when we got home or something like that. It felt really warm, sunny. And the temps down south were all good. But it's the speeds. Definitely through, I want to say, pretty much through Tennessee to Florida and back through almost all the way up to Missouri. The speeds were, if you're not going 80 or close to it, you're going to get run off the road. And you have these situations where, it's 2 lanes of highway, and semis are supposed to stay in the right lane, but then they get behind a slow semi and then they pass. And so you're cruising at 80 and you got traffic packed up tight. and then one of these semis pulls over and you're going 63 all of a sudden. And then the second that guy gets over, it's boom, everyone's going. And Tennessee has some potholes that will rattle your teeth. It was staggering. They are all the width of the entire lane, and all you can do is brace yourself and hold on. Yeah, it was just mind-boggling. And so you're just going up and down these hills and everything, and it's fun driving, but pretty intense. So the speed was really the killer. I would have generally on the interstates, if it's 70 miles an hour, I'll go 76, 78 if I want to go fast. But if you go 76 through Georgia, you're going to be holding lots of people up, and at least the days and times we were there, it was fast. But really, once the temps got warm, and then once we got between Orlando and Cocoa Beach, it's pretty much straight east out there. That slowed down a little bit. Traffic spread out a little bit. And then once you're in and around Cocoa Beach in that area, speed limits are relatively slow. People aren't that aggressive. I think the fastest speed limit around there is 55, and people generally go like 60, 62. And then the further inland you get, the faster the speeds ramp up. So it was one of those things like you charge up and you just live with one charge for a long time. We were kind of charging up because we were driving different places. But, I'd be thinking, oh man, we're going to get back to the condo with, 10%. And we get back with like 50 or something like that. And, the nice weather, the slow speeds, because you're not driving fast, a little wind doesn't affect you that much. And the nice high temperatures just keep your battery very happy. So everyone in those kind of communities should be driving an EV. It's so easy there. Jason says, GigaFest Austin, I need 2 tickets. Yeah. I really want to go to that. Yeah, I don't know if I can swing it. It's they said it's April 7th now, I think, is when they're going to do that. And then like there's the whole like unofficial Giga Texas party that's going to go on down there. Everybody who's on YouTube is going down there, so I really feel like I'm going to be missing out by not going. But we just had this trip. I've got the Custer Sound of Silence rally is on May 20th. I'll be going to that. I know this is right in the middle, so doesn't obviously affect either one of them, but it's just spending a lot of money, and my channel's been monetized for I guess a little over 2 months now, and I'm almost up to making $100 with all the views and videos and stuff I've done in that time, and that's not a complaint at all. It's all great, but it's not at the point where I'm raking in the dough to be able to justify, just taking off at the drop of a hat and going and do these major events all the time. So, but it would be cool if I can swing it, if I can find a way, I will. Even to just be in the area for some of those other ancillary events, hang out with people, it would be cool to do. Yeah. John says he puts the song on Sammy Hagar, I Can't Drive 55. Yeah. Yeah, Jason really wants to go too. Yeah, it would be, that's kind of the thing. Like I was mentioning Fully Charged Live a couple years ago. And what was cool about it, that was also in Austin, was as we were driving down, we met other Minnesotans going down. We kind of picked up this caravan along the way. And then when you're at the event, you're like, hey, that's you. And hey, what have you guys been up to? And did you see this yet? Did you see that yet? And so it's just kind of good camaraderie, good, fun to kind of have a group with you. Excuse me. So we'll see. Like I said, if I can swing it, if I can find a way to make it work and it works out with family things, it would be great to go. I did pre-register and said if I can swing, there were a couple different tiers you could sign up as I'll attend if it works with my schedule or something like that, and I think that's the one I chose. But so it was a very tentative, I'd like to go. I don't think I'll get a ticket to the actual real event at the factory. Obviously, if I did, I'd be going. Because that would be a very different situation. Speaking of the Custer Sound of Silence rally in May, that is the weekend of May 20th through the 22nd. And I'm booked up for that as far as the event goes. Haven't booked a hotel yet. Still trying to figure out with family logistics if I can go out there on Thursday with the group from Minnesota, in a convoy. That would be awesome. But might have to go out Friday morning or leave Thursday night, get there on Friday. We'll kind of, my wife and I need to hammer out how exactly we're going to handle that. She's starting a new job next week, and obviously we'll know more once she starts that about what her days and nights are going to look like. So it'll all be interesting, but looking forward to that. That's a fun event. Excuse me. I haven't talked this much in a long time, so Roland's going to be there, coming down to Custer, South Dakota from Williston, North Dakota. So that's going to be almost a straight shot south, very south. But it's a fun event. I know that this year they're capping it at 200. I don't know if it's 200 vehicles or 200 attendees, but they're capping it at 200 this year. I don't know that it's, I don't know if it's booked up yet. I can bring this up, I think. Yes, on my other screen here. They've got a Facebook. You don't need my pop-ups. I guess I could full screen this too so you could see it better. So that is their Facebook page, and the dates and info, and then their sign-up sheet. Or sign-up sheet, how old am I? Their sign-up info form is here. $110 for participants. You get a shirt. And then you can add other attendees, all that stuff. So, worth checking out if that's the kind of thing you would like to do. And we're back. But like I said, I'll be going. My daughter and wife aren't going this year, so hopefully I'm going to get a lot more. It would be fun to have them there. Don't get me wrong. We had a good time last year. But from a getting good footage perspective and hanging out and talking with people perspective, it wasn't as engaging as I would have liked. A lot of times I had my daughter with me, and then we just kind of had different constraints than I'll have on my own as far as being able to shoot stuff, to meet with people, to hang out, all that kind of stuff. So it should be a fun time, and it's a fun city with a lot of attractions nearby. If you're into Buffalo, cool rock formations, just kind of cool nature areas, it's a really good spot, and one that if you haven't been there before, you might think, what could South Dakota possibly have to offer that's interesting and worth going? But I can tell you, as someone who admittedly had that attitude before my first trip to the Black Hills and that area, it is worth it. So, and obviously there's going to be a lot of Tesla vehicles, camaraderie. You'll see some cool modifications. Don't know if we'll see any giant pipes on the sides of trucks there this year, but at least not the Cybertruck this year. But hopefully next year, possibly next year, we could see a Cybertruck there. So that would be worth going on its own. Let's see. I think those were kind of the big topics, things I wanted to bring up. And then if anybody has any other questions about the road trip, I was just going to talk a little bit about, obviously the videos are going to come out in the next couple weeks about our trip down and then our trip back up. Driving down through Iowa. Oh, an interesting, let's see if I have that handy. Something interesting happened that has never happened to me before. I burned an SD card in my GoPro. I will get that here if I can find it. Of course, now I can't find it. But it actually, it's one of those little teeny SD cards. And it was the footage, my dash cam footage. My dash cam footage from the first day of driving. So leaving Minnesota, down through Iowa, all the way to St. Louis. And it had a lot of good footage on it. And I put the card in that night, and it didn't read. And I thought, well, that's really weird. Unplugged, replugged, did all the stuff. And then I looked at it, and it actually had a burn mark where the chip or whatever on the top part of it Must have overheated and burned out or shorted out or something. And yeah, just roasted the chip. So I'm trying to come up with a fun. Uh, I recorded stuff in the cab of the car, and then I had the dash cam. And usually, what I do is, because I talk in such a herky jerky manner, as I'm sure you've understood or noticed, I would cut stuff like that out and put the real words I wanted to say together while you're watching the good B-roll of the car driving down the road. And now there isn't any of that. So I'm coming out trying to come up with fun, creative ways to show B-roll that isn't the real B-roll, but would be entertaining. So I was thinking of taking a little photo of that card burned out in the snow, and kind of explaining, hey, this is the card that died, but it was snowing in Minnesota. And then, I don't know, maybe find some... well, it wasn't really snowing. It was sunny and beautiful, which is really unfortunate because the footage all the way to Rochester was gorgeous. And then through Iowa, what I was trying to illustrate and talking about in the car was, we're going from 0 degrees in Burnsville, and it's, progressively getting warmer. We're starting to see less and less snow in the fields. And then by the time we got to St. Louis, it was even more sparse. And maybe gone by the time we got to St. Louis. But then it was going to be that kind of the progression of, from the snow all the way to the beach. And now that is gone. If anybody has any good ideas, I was thinking of just finding like some cheesy Christmas snowflakes or something like that I could, put on over as B-roll as if I was driving through it. But I'm all ears for that. As far as the Custer thing, Tyler's saying it was capped at 200 attendees. So, not 200 vehicles. So, that could fill up even faster because, some people go with their whole families. So, you might have like 4 attendees for one car. Last year, there were, I think, over 70 cars, if I remember correctly. But I kind of wanted to talk about, as we got back from this road trip, it kind of had me thinking about like how many, like this trip was 3,745 miles, which doesn't sound like a ton, but if I can, let's see, I should be able to bring that map up. Since we got our Model S in 2018, this is the map of the EV road trips we've done. And the one going down to Austin, then across the Gulf Coast to Orlando, and then back up. I guess you can't see my cursor here. No, you can't. But that was the trip we did in 2020 where we saw the Rivian. But a lot of these routes we've gone multiple times. And I thought it was really interesting the drive back from Orlando in 2022 with a longer range, Model Y. There are more charging options. Charging is faster with V3. And even though the car has a similar size battery, or even a little smaller, I think it's a little smaller in the Model Y compared to the Model S was an 85D. I felt like we did a lot fewer stops for charging. And we also had to go, you can see at St. Louis, it kind of splits. One path goes further west and then up. But there weren't enough chargers in eastern Iowa to do that in 2020. So we had to go all the way over toward Chicago and then go south. And so we added a bunch of time kind of going out of our way because that was the only option in 2020. But now, there were plenty of chargers. Again, like our trip this summer, we were able to skip some chargers. Not sure if that was necessarily the best plan, but let's see if we can. But I kind of want to do in my as I talk through the final stats and all that stuff. I kind of want to compare the stops we made in the Model S. I'm not sure how much data I collected on the way back on that trip. I'm going to have to go back and watch that video. All in the Frunk Full of Diapers series, which you can watch now. But that trip we did over the course of 2 days, and I only got a few hours of sleep before we left. I was sick and only got about 2 to 2.5 hours in the car in trying to think of what city it was. It was behind a Dunkin' Donuts. We stopped there at the same charger on the way back this time too. And I was so miserable and so tired, and that was so unsafe. I wouldn't recommend anyone doing that. It was good. We had AP1 helping out, but I was trying to get us back before a snowstorm hit in Minnesota and Wisconsin, and so we were pushing harder than we planned on. And this time, because of that trip, I said we're going to take 3 days getting back, and we're going to stop at hotels and get good night's sleep, because with me being the only driver, it was important to be more safe. So, really interesting. I feel like we did hit a lot of the same superchargers, but I know we skipped some that we had to hit in the Model S. So it'll be interesting comparing the length of time driving versus charging, and how many stops in the Model S compared to the Model Y. Excuse me. I think that's going to be pretty interesting, especially since people are still buying 85Ds used, and probably still paying a lot for them because of used car prices. But that should be interesting. And also, I wanted to bring up our Model Y is not yet a year old. And we've got 27,964 miles on it. So I can almost guarantee we'll be at 28,000 by the time we hit the year mark. And for someone who's been working from home for most of that year, that's a lot of miles. So we've definitely got our road trip use out of the Model Y, and it's still in pretty good shape. If I wouldn't have hit a raccoon, scratched it myself, and taken a big chunk out of one of the rims at a Waffle House on this trip, which will be part of the video, if I hadn't done that stuff, the car would be in almost perfect condition. Um, because my daughter climbs back and forth over the back seat, there's a little bit on the headliner back there that needs to be cleaned up, but otherwise the car's in great shape, and no problems that I haven't caused anyway on it. Uh, so so that's good. I'll probably do a year review and walk around on it. But do I have that? I am not organized tonight. I do not have all my props with me. Um, I was going to say when I met Evie Dave on in Asheville, North Carolina, he gave me a bottle of window cleaning stuff. It's like a spray-on stuff. It kind of foams up white, and then your windshield just wipes off super clean, and it is fantastic. I used it on my mirrors and stuff, and worked really, really well. He said it's the best stuff he's found to use, so it was nice to get a can of that, and we'll continue hopefully bringing you dash cam footage that's free from bugs for the most part. So if Tyler says the only damage we have so far is a paint chip or two and a broken mud flap and Todd's windshields. Yes. Well, there is that. I lost my train of thought. I was going to say, speaking of road trips and videos, Dave is on his way, Evie Dave is on his way out to Wyoming and kind of followed our exact path up to Mount Vernon, Illinois in the video he put out last night. He's probably going to do one every day until he gets out there. That's kind of how he does it. But it was really interesting to see the stops the car had him do versus the stops the car had us do. Just because I think it takes time of day into account to some degree, because at one of our stops it had us charge for 40 minutes. And I was thinking, why in the world is it doing this? Like, this is the dumbest. Like, I know there's chargers in Nashville. Like, we could just hop up there. And then I looked at the time and looked at the traffic in Nashville, and it was tons of stop and go. So I let it roll according to the plan, and when we got to Nashville, we were in such stop and go traffic that I can see getting off the interstate, driving through the busy side roads to get to the supercharger, charging, and then getting back into that mess would have overall taken longer, I think, than what we did, which was just stay there longer, then just go straight through the traffic as fast as we could, and then work our way up. So, but Dave left at a different time of day, and it had him go through Nashville and charge in Nashville. And on our way down, it also had us charge in Nashville, but the traffic wasn't that nearly as bad. So there's definitely something interesting going on with the route planning and stuff. So I'm going to try to look into that in the course of these videos. Because my wife starts her new job next week, she is definitely a data, I'm trying to think of a good word for data nerd, but she's a data nerd. And we'll be kind of looking through our charge times, our stop times, and trying to pull some fun information out of that to share with you guys. Yeah, But I think it does, like, although we were charging for longer in places, I think it was making choices based on what the traffic was doing elsewhere. So we'll see if that kind of holds true or if we just overcharge. Now, a lot of times it would say you need to be here 15 minutes, but the charger was at like a high V or something. By the time I got my daughter out of the car, we went into the high V, we used the restroom, we walked back out, got her back into the car. We were there 20, 25 minutes. And that was just the case in a lot of situations where we'd get the notice of like, you're ready to continue your trip. I'm like, okay, great. We're still in the store, having just left the bathroom, and we'll get there when we get there. So, yeah, interesting. And then we had the Waffle House curb ate part of my tire. All my fault. But still, or my rim, I guess. And don't know. I'd like to have that repaired. That's one of those things that's probably just cosmetic. But it seems bad. It's about the size of if you took a dime and cut it in half and then took that half dime shape out of the edge of the rim. That's what it looks like. It's unpleasant to look at. But it happened on one of our last legs on the way down there. We drove around fine, hit all the potholes in Tennessee coming back north, and didn't have any tire issues. Thank you. I did ask some people on Facebook, on the Facebook Minnesota Owners Club, and like, does everybody think this is cosmetic? Because I think it's cosmetic, but it's always good to have a second opinion on those kind of things. Chris says, you hit a raccoon? Yes, I hit a raccoon. Last fall, and I still haven't had the... all it really did is, again, this is mostly cosmetic. On the bottom of the bumper, there's the blue section of the bumper, and there's some black plastic that joins up to meet it. And that, kind of like there's like teeth of plastic that run on both of those pieces, so they kind of flap over each other and hold snug. And then there are little plastic clips that pop in, and that holds the two pieces together. And when I hit the raccoon, it kind of popped those out, so the teeth were kind of dorky looking, hanging out, but I was able to tuck them back in. All the holes and everything aligns. There's just like a 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch gap between those two pieces of plastic. And it's so minor. Like, I was going to get it fixed right away, but it was the end of a quarter, and I know how busy the Tesla people are at the end of a quarter, so I'm like, I'll just get it fixed next. And then by the time I got around to getting to it again, it was near the end of the year. And I thought, I'm not going to bother them at the end of the year. And now we're into March, so it will get fixed, but it's not a big deal. The raccoon was not at the Waffle House. It was just north of Belle Plaine, Minnesota, on Highway 169. It would be a cool story if I hit a raccoon at the Waffle House. At least then I know it would have died very happy and full. yeah. So anyway, gonna do some comparison on charging, my best thoughts on techniques for preconditioning and how much to precondition. Because we burned up a lot. I bet if I had cut some of the preconditioning out, I bet our watt hours per mile for the trip would have come down quite a bit. I don't know how much, because once you average that many miles together, it might not have made that much difference. But I know coming south out of Minnesota at 0 degrees Fahrenheit, we were, I think the trip between home and Rochester, we averaged 465 watt hours per mile or something ridiculous. And that kind of begged the question of, if we're getting that bad efficiency because we're preconditioning, it was also very windy, cold. But if some of that is preconditioning, but it makes us charge faster, but if it uses 10 or 15% of the battery to do that preconditioning so we charge faster, that means we're going to just be charging back faster on the part it used to make us charge faster. So does it save you any time? It's probably better for the battery to get warm, but when you're on a road trip with a child and it's cold out and you want to get moving, is that the day you want to really like, oh, I'm going to baby the battery? So I don't know. I've got some thoughts on that that'll all be in the videos. And then, comparing our trip back between the 2020 trip and the Model S, that was mid-February, I think. It was colder coming north than it was this time. So slight differences there. Obviously different vehicle, but should be some good information coming in the next couple weeks on that front. In the meantime, if you're waiting for road trip, like I said, EV Dave's got his, he's driving from North Carolina out to Wyoming. Had the first part of that trip out last night, and I expect the second part will probably drop sometime around midnight tonight, and be available to watch tomorrow as well. So, yeah, I am kind of out of topics. And I know there's a lot more we could cover. There's a Polestar 3, I think, or Polestar Roadster announcement today. Didn't really get a chance to look into that much. And also had my first experience with the Polestar 2 and the Volvo XC40 Recharge before I left on the trip. Just barely got that edited before we had to leave. But maybe we'll talk more about that when I have my brain more about me in next week's show. And some of the thoughts and comments on those cars as well, because they're both great options for the right use case if you have good access to CCS charging. And that's kind of the Achilles heel on those. Roland's out, so bye, Roland. The other thing I wanted to say was I did do an interview with the Living Electric podcast with Brandon and Alex. Alex wasn't on the show that day. He had a scheduling conflict, so it was just Brandon and I. We kind of talked about my EV origin story. And over the last couple of weeks, they've kind of done their EV origin story. We also talked about car camping overnight, and freshening gravy, and all sorts of stuff. So wide-ranging conversation. Should be pretty interesting when that comes out. They haven't told me when it's coming out. I would guess in the next few weeks. Obviously, I'll tweet it out. I'll post it. I'll share it when it comes out. But if you haven't checked out the Living Electric podcast, or either of their channels, it's worth doing. So they do new episodes of their podcast on Monday mornings. I think they drop Monday mornings. And they also do it on YouTube, on video. Obviously, more people listen to the podcast than watch it, but it's available there, and that's usually where I end up watching it because most of my life is on YouTube. But again, I'll follow up if that gets released. I'll let everyone know about that as well. But that's it for me tonight. Thank you very much for hanging out, and hopefully by next week we're in a much more peaceful world. And thanks for joining me, and I will catch you all in the next one. So have a great night. Have a good week. Look for that. Should be the first part of that road trip video coming out on Sunday morning. So if I get my butt in gear and get that edited anyway. So look for that and some maybe funny B-roll for the part I'm missing. So have a great night. I'll catch you later. Thanks a lot. Bye.